There hasn't been much room in this election campaign for the voices of the smaller political parties. With so much polarization and so many personal attacks, the big parties have really grabbed all the attention. So this morning, we've invited the leaders of 3 other parties, all of which are running a large number of candidates in this election campaign. In our Montreal studio, we're joined by the leader of the Green Party, Alex Tyrrell. Good morning.
Good morning.
Here in Quebec City, Adrien Pouliot, who's the leader of the Conservative Party of Quebec. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And Zanetti, who's the leader of the Option Nationale. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start with a few general questions. You never get invited to the television debates. You generally are left out of the daily campaign coverage. And even if you get a lot of votes, it's going to be hard to get a seat given the system that we have. Zanetti, let me start with you. Do we need to change the way that we work the system, the political system works in this province?
Of course we need to do it, because every election everybody has to make a choice between the worst party and the second worst party, and they don't feel like they're free to choose for their own values, the party that they prefer. And what we did in this campaign to have the media's attention was to do a travel of all the regions of Quebec, where it's a lot easier to get attention from the media.
Adrien Pouliot, what about you? Is there something in our system that's flawed that means that even if you've got support out there, it doesn't necessarily show the day after the election in terms of budget or standing?
Well, my view is that if you want to change things and have significant change like we're proposing, more free market, less government, less taxes, if you want to do that, you have to have the system you have right now, because if you go to a proportional system, it's impossible to do a lot of changes because you've got all these parties and the National Assembly, and you need coalitions, and it's impossible.
Too much splintering?
Yeah, like you have in Italy. Nothing happens in Italy. You can't do anything because you need to have the approval of 25 parties, and that's impossible. So, it's hard. For us, it's hard to get a seat and then to get more seats and so on. But once you're there, you can do the changes, and it's possible. You look at the Action démocratique du Québec; they came very close. They had 42 seats in 2007.
Alex Tyrrell, what about you? Is there a piece of a way that the system could work better for a party like yours?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the Green Party is very much in favor of proportional representation. Mm-hmm. We think it's the best way to make sure that electors are properly represented in the National Assembly. And contrary to my colleague from the Conservative Party, we think that discussion amongst different parties in the National Assembly is something that's good and that helps the democracy.
We've talked to voters through this campaign, and it's extraordinary to hear how many people are talking about voting strategically. You get that every election campaign. My sense is that there are a lot of people thinking about it this time around. I'm not sure what the reason is. There might be a referendum element there. There might be a majority element there that people don't want to hand anyone a majority. How do you counter that idea of strategic voting, especially in one like a campaign like this one, where there's so much polarization going on? I'll start with you, Adrien Pouliot.
Well, I try to bring it back to ridings, because you're not voting for a party, you're not voting for a premier, you're voting for a député, a member of the National Assembly. So in my riding, I tell people, look, there were 30,000 Federalist votes in 2012 and 8,000 Separatist votes. So, even if you vote for us, the PQ will never win. So don't worry, you can vote for me, and it's not going to make the PQ go into my riding.
But don't you hear people saying that's a wasted vote, quote unquote?
Well, no, because we tell people, on the contrary, if you waste your vote voting Liberal in my riding, and you're pinching your nose to vote Liberal, that's a wasted vote, because you're going to be stuck for the next 4 years with a Liberal that doesn't have your values or your convictions.
What about someone who says, Zanetti, I have sovereignty at heart. I'm going to vote Parti Québécois. I don't see why I would vote for Option Nationale if I have the Parti Québécois and the possibility of them being in power and holding a referendum. How do you counter that?
Well, the situation is funny because the message is not clear about independence of Quebec. Everybody who doesn't want a referendum is sure that they will get one with the Parti Québécois, and everybody who wants a referendum is sure that they won't get one. So everybody thinks about the worst situation. I think that we have to have a clear message, and that I really don't believe that Parti Québécois will do a referendum. I don't think that's what they're planning to do right now.
Alex Tyrrell, is there, you must have quite a bit of experience with having that conversation with people about the strategic vote and where people feel like the concerns that are being espoused by the Green Party, might be represented by another party which has a better chance of getting into power.
Well, I think that in this election, a lot of people are really concerned about stopping Marois, and I do understand that. But what I tell people is that when they're voting for a small party, they're contributing to building something, both in the short term and in the long term. So there's really a lot that we can do to represent our electors, even if we're not elected to the National Assembly, by defending them between elections.
Integrity is... Oh, go ahead, Adrien.
Well, I would add, it's interesting because for the Conservative Party of Quebec, what we're saying is that we're the only right-of-centre party. Contrary to...
You wouldn't suggest that the CAQ is right of centre?
No. François Legault is, sometimes he's left, sometimes he's right, he's confused, he's a sovereignist. But, we clearly position ourselves as being the only one who is right of centre. So we have the market, if you want, totally. Compared to, let's say, Option Nationale or the Parti Vert or QS or the PQ, who are kind of sharing, well, they're all sharing the left of centre position, really.
Why so you're in your, because there would be people at home thinking, well, we have the CAQ, why do we need a conservative party, another small c conservative party? In your case, the large C. What is it that people should see in you that you say isn't present in the Coalition Avenir Québec?
Well, it's consistency. I mean, François Legault has good ideas, like he wants to have a taxpayer charter, which is a great idea, we think. But then in the same breath, in the same week, he says to Marois, oh, what a great idea to take $120 million of taxpayer money and plunk it into Anticosti to see if there's oil. Hey, hello, this is our tax dollars at work, So François Legault is not really... He's been right of centre in the last 2 weeks. Well, now you see the old ADQ guys coming out and he's putting them forward, but suddenly he's found it's a holy grail of right of center. But I think that when the election is over, he'll go back to his old, left of center position.
Since you've brought up Anticosti, let me ask Alex Tyrrell what he thinks of the whole question of the Quebec government looking into the possibility, at least, of exploiting that oil resource, if there is in fact an oil resource to be exploited.
I think it's completely hypocritical that Pauline Marois was elected on a promise of a moratorium for shale gas, which involves hydraulic fracturing, and that now she's ready to go ahead with it on Anticosti Island, and also to finance it from the taxpayers' money. The Green Party of Quebec is opposed to any kind of hydraulic fracturing on the territory of Quebec, and we're really disappointed with the position that the three big parties have all taken in favor of fracturing Anticosti Island.
You have a former leader of the Green Party who signed up with the Parti québécois, and along with Daniel Breton and Martine Ouellette, those are three strong voices who have been known for their defense of environmental concerns in this province. Is there not a suggestion there that there might be some consensus that can be reached where you're trying to exploit the resources, but in a sustainably development, that you can do the sustainable development thing too?
I really don't think so. Those people have lost really a lot of respect from the environmental community. We're really disappointed with the path that they've chosen to take. And it's just a really unfortunate situation, and hopefully one day they'll realize that they're doing the wrong thing.
Charles Zanetti, Option Nationale is looking at nationalizing natural resources with partnerships with private enterprise. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to take that approach?
I think it's the only way to really have all the means to control what happens with the resources, with all the money that we can get from there first, and also it's the better way to respect the environment. In fact, there's no better way also to protect the environment and then to manage our own finances than really have the power of controlling all our political and financial means. Right now, Quebec leaves its ecological situation in between the hands of a government who especially invests in hydrocarbons. How is that ecologically responsible? That's the question.
Is it though a necessary evil at some level? Adrien Pouliot, is there a necessity here to make some decisions that some people might find hard to stomach in order to find those sources of revenue that everyone seems to be in agreement with the fact that we need to find different revenue streams in order to fund the programs that we want to offer people in the province?
Well, our view is that we want to vigorously develop natural resources. and manage risk, because every human activity entails risks. I drove here to come to your studio. I could have had an accident, but you manage risks. And so it's a question of simply, if you want to create wealth, you have to do that. And if you had a BAP, environmental review, when we invented fire, it probably would not have worked. I mean, they would have said, "Oh, wow, that's dangerous. Fire you can burn yourself, you can burn your house. So, we're not going to allow fire." There is risk in every activity, but there are also huge benefits. And you have to weigh the benefits against the risks.
What about then hydropower? We have heard François Legault suggest that, it's throwing good money after bad to be investing in those huge hydroelectric dams like the La Romaine project. Where do you stand on that?
Well, François Legault let's remember that 18 months ago, François Legault agreed and was in agreement to raise hydro rates. I think people have forgotten it. You were talking about left and right. Here's a good example where François Legault is on the left. Hey, raise the monopoly rates of hydro. Now, I've always said that it's totally ridiculous to have wind power in Quebec. It loses $700 million a year, and you're exchanging something that's green, hydroelectricity, with something that's green, but, turning red, ça tourne dans le rouge. I mean, it's losing
Still
money.
Surplus situation, though.
Yeah, so there's a lot of surplus. Why would you want to build more windmills, wind power? It's ridiculous.
But we're in a hydro surplus situation too.
Yeah, so why would you want to have more electricity?
And what about hydro? Are you?
Oh yeah, you have to stop. You have to stop La Romaine immediately.
Stop now.
Absolutely.
Alex Tyrrell, what about you? Green energy versus fossil fuels. Both hydro and wind power fall into the green category. Renewable resource. Should La Romaine be continued, or do you agree with the Energy Commission's report from a few weeks back?
Well, we do agree with that report. We think that the final third and fourth dams should be stopped. But we do believe in the potential of wind energy, and we think that a lot of buildings in Quebec could be converted from fossil fuels to electricity for heating, and that we could really reduce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions that way. So we're still in favor of continuing to develop windmills.
There is a lot of debate over when and if wind will become a profitable industry in the province. We've talked about it a lot on the program. As I said earlier, though, there isn't a lot of debate around the question of the fact that we need more money to pay for the programs that we're offering people and that we want to offer people. Zanetti, where are we on that question of public programs? We offer, cheaper daycare than anywhere else in the country. We have so many advantages in this province. Where's the money to come from to pay for them all?
The money is in Ottawa right now. We give Ottawa $45 billion every year, and they invested in the fossil fuels in Alberta. They invested in the car industry in Ontario. They invested in the hydroelectricity programs in Newfoundland that are doing concurrence for Hydro-Québec. So that's a problem. I think that if we could get all our means, our financial means, we could invest a lot in the electric transport in Quebec, and we could create this market, this internal market for green energies. So we would have no more surplus situation, and it will be a lot greener and a lot more effective for Quebec's economy.
How does one get a hold of the resources in Ottawa? Does that inevitably mean a sovereign Quebec, or does that mean one drives a harder bargain at the negotiating table? How does that happen?
Well, I think we would have to do Quebec's independence. I think that's obvious, and that's the main point of our party, Option Nationale.
You're talking to a largely Anglophone audience right now.
I know, and
does that mean that you're kind of assuming that people are listening to what you say, but probably not going to be a factor in terms of eventual support for your party?
I assume that they don't agree with it right now, but I assume that we could convince some of them to agree with it, because I think that what would be good for Quebec's environment, for Quebec's economy, for Quebec's democracy, should be good for everybody who lives here. And I think that if with a clear attitude, with an honest attitude, with this open-minded attitude of the new, I would say, like sovereignist generation, I think we will convince some people someday.
Adrien Pouliot, the question of programs, what we can offer and how we can pay.
Well, I think Mr. Zanetti is living in La La Land. I mean, he says we're sending $45 billion to Ottawa. What he's not saying is that we're getting $61 billion back. We are net getting $16 billion, and it's not for petroleum in Alberta. I mean, it's equalization payments. We're getting $9.3 billion from equalization. We're getting transfers for unemployment insurance. We're getting grants. The government gives grants to everybody in Quebec.
So are we being too generous then with all that money that we have? What are we doing wrong here that we're always in a deficit and a debt position?
The first thing we need is to have economic independence. Instead of being at the subject to Alberta and Ottawa and New York's whims in terms of lending us money or giving us money, we have to become economically independent. We have to get back to what we were in the 1960s. In the 1960s, Quebec and Montreal were powerhouses, financial powerhouses. And now where are we? We're trailing last in terms of economic power in Canada. So, we have to go back to basics, create wealth, let investors come here, welcome them when they come here, and let them make money and grow the economy, which will benefit everybody.
I'm going to give the last word to Alex Tyrrell. Alex Tyrrell, what about you? The programs we offer, how to pay for them? What's the bottom line for you? Do we have to look at a more judicious choice of programs, or is there a way out of the situation we're in right now, debt-wise?
Right now, there's a growing prosperity gap between the richest citizens and the poorest. We think that the time has come to tax the rich more in Quebec. Right now, when you make $100,000 per year, you pay exactly the same percentage as somebody who makes $10 million.
That's ludicrous.
We think that that's wrong, and that it needs to be changed.
That's untrue.
It's not false. It's a fact. It's the exact same percentage.
Come on, I mean, are you working? Have you paid any taxes? I mean, if somebody who's making $250,000 pays 39% in taxes. Somebody who's making $1 million pays 48% in taxes. That's not the same percentage.
It's the same provincial tax rate.
Obviously, this has been a short period of time to cover a lot of territory, but we've heard from all three of you, and we appreciate you coming in, and hopefully that this has given at least the opportunity for people out there who haven't heard your voices so far to hear a little bit of what you have to say on a couple of subjects. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you very much.
In our Montreal studio this morning, Alex Tyrrell, who's the leader of the Green Party. Quebec City, we had Zanetti of the Option Nationale, and Adrien Pouliot, who's the leader of the Conservative Party of Quebec. Sean Lyons is here.